Welcome back to the Chord by Chord series. So if you've been learning your chord inversions, you probably understand numbers in figured bass, like 6, 6/4, maybe even 4/2. But then you see something like this, an 8-7, with a horizontal line connecting the two numbers. What does that mean? What is the line telling you to do? The good news? That horizontal line is actually one of the most helpful notations in figured bass. It's not confusing. It's a voice leading instruction in disguise. And once you understand what it's saying, connecting, for example, a 5 to 5/7 chord becomes second nature. Let's break it down. Usually we'll see this 8-7 notation accompanying a 5 chord, but what we're really looking at is a 2-chord progression, a root position 5 triad followed by a root position 5/7 chord. The 8-7 figure is both shorthand and an instruction. It tells you exactly what one of the upper voices is doing. So let's say we're in the key of C major. We're moving from a G triad, GBD, to a G7 chord, GBDF. Here's what that 8-7 means. One of the upper voices starts an octave above the bass on G, which is scale degree 5, and then moves down to a seventh above the bass, which is F, or scale degree 4. That's it. Just one voice moves from 5 to 4 down by step. And here I'm showing it in the soprano, but as usual, the upper voices can be in any order. The three other voices all remain stationary, the bass on scale degree 5 and the other voices on 7 and 2. It is the most stepwise way to connect 5 and 5/7. It creates that added tension from the 7th without any awkward leaps, and it works the same in minor keys as it does in major. This motion also reflects how the 5/7 chord evolved historically. The 7th, scale degree 4, is really functioning as a passing tone that resolves down to scale degree 3 in the next chord. Since 5 is by far the most common chord to gain a 7th, you'll usually see the 8-7 figure on a 5 chord, but the same idea can apply to other Roman numerals as well. The next most common chord to use a 7th is 2. So in a 2-8-7 progression, you'd do the same thing. One upper voice moves from an octave above the bass to a seventh above it, while the other voices remain stationary. This figure always implies a stepwise connection between a triad and its corresponding seventh chord. We could even see a 2-8-7 followed by a 5-8-7, like this. Now, 5-8-7 is a specific voicing, but anytime you see 5 to 5/7, you can use that same strategy. But you also have another option. Again, we'll keep 3 voices stationary and move just one note. But this time, we'll take the voice on scale degree 2 and leap up to 4. If you watched my video on the 5/7 chord, you'll remember that the chordal 7th is a dissonance that has to be treated carefully. It needs to be prepared, meaning we can't just drop that note in randomly. It must be approached by one of 3 ways: by step, by common tone, or by ascending leap. Remember that. You can leap up to the 7th and only up, not down. That's because the chordal 7th must step down in the following chord, and leaping down and then stepping down again creates an awkward imbalance. So that's what we're doing here, leaping up to the 7th, then resolving it down in the next chord. We also end up with an omitted 5th in the 5/7 chord, which, as you'll remember, is very common. It gives us more flexibility to move to a complete 1 chord, which is harder to voice if the 5/7 chord is complete. In real music, you'll also see composers fill in that leap of a third from 2 to 4 with a passing tone on 3, creating a smoother, more stepwise line. You'll find all 3 versions, the 8-7 motion, the leap up to the 7th, and the passing tone up throughout real music. 5-1 is the most common chord progression, and these are all ways of making that connection just a little more interesting. Take the Bach chorale we looked at in the last video, showing how 4 moves to 5. Bach immediately turns the 5 into a 5/7 chord by keeping 3 voices stationary and moving the upper voice on 5, the soprano, down to 4, which then continues down to 3 in the next chord, which here is a 6 chord. This is textbook 8-7 in action, and once you understand it, you'll start seeing it everywhere. One thing you have to be careful about, 5 can go to 5-7, but 5-7 cannot go back to 5. Why not? Because the 7th, scale degree 4, is a dissonance, and dissonances must resolve. You can't just take it back. You can't introduce tension and then say, never mind. Once that 7th is in play, it needs closure. So remember, 8-7 is simply shorthand for connecting a triad with its 7th chord version, as well as an instruction telling you how to connect one of the upper voices. And 8-7 is the simplest use of that horizontal line in figured bass. Keep this in mind, as later on we'll see it doing lots of other things, like 4-3, 6-5, 7-6, as well as combinations of multiple lines at once. Again, this starts to look really complicated, but they're always telling you exactly how to voice the progressions. Remember, good voice leading isn't about following rules, it's about understanding how these connections evolved naturally. 8-7 is the least complicated way of connecting these two chords, so use it to your advantage. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to subscribe for more chord by chord explanations. And I'll see you next time on Dr. Fromm's Music Lab.